All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Just a second. Okay, good morning. I call the meeting of Wednesday, June 3rd to order. First on our agenda is preliminary matters. And I haven't had any requests for continuances, withdrawals, postponements, or addition of X agenda items. So we'll just hear the one item that is noticed on our agenda. The next item under preliminary matters is announcements and appeals. And I have no announcements and we've had no recent appeals. So the last item on the preliminary matters is comments from members on the public to items not on this agenda. Is there anybody there who would like to address the staff hearing officer on items not on the agenda?
Thank you, Suzie. So again, if you're interested on speaking to items not on the agenda, you raise your hand by using the hand icon on your GoToWebinar control panel, and I'll call on you. I do not see anyone at this time who wishes to speak, so back to you.
Okay, great. So I'll close the public comment under preliminary matters. So we'll move to the first item, or the only item on the agenda. It's 435 East Valerio Street. If staff would like to click on their mic along with the applicant and applicant team, if there's a team. And then we'll first have staff presentation, followed by the applicant presentation.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So we are here to discuss 2 interior setback modifications and an open yard modification to allow construction of a new accessory dwelling unit under state law on top of an existing garage. The lot is a 5,909 square foot R2 zoned lot located at the corner of Olive and Valerio Streets. And Timmy, if you can go to page 1 of the architectural plans, the site plan. And if you could scroll or zoom into the bottom site plan here. And so what's important to know before we get started is we aren't talking about typical 6-foot interior setbacks of an R2 lot. We're talking about 4-foot interior setbacks since this is an ADU under state law. And so Timmy, if we can scroll to page 4 now. The garage that the ADU is proposed on top of was approved in 2015 with a 6-foot rear setback and a 3-foot interior setback, which was applicable for the garage with no modifications. And the ADU is proposed exactly on top of that. So now we can go to page 5. And so you'll see the floor plan is an exact square image of the garage for the ADU. And since there's that 3-foot interior setback on the left side of our image that we can see, that's where our first modification request comes from. And there's no habitable floor area proposed within this setback. And there's also no windows proposed. So you'll see that large X there. There's going to be a pony wall there, so you can't actually walk all the way to the edge and look out a window. There are no windows. There are no habitable areas within even the 6-foot interior setback. The staircase at the rear of the building also requires a modification. So we can see that it is 2 foot 10 inches from the rear property line. And so it is 1 foot 2 inches into the required 4-foot setback. So this is the required access for the unit. There is no recreational area such as a large landing for patio furniture and whatnot, and it's only the access door, no windows, nothing to look into the neighboring yard. But there is a 3-foot private sewer easement that I want to bring up because it did come up in a public comment letter. And again, it is 3 feet from the rear property line inward. So this staircase does encroach a total of 2 inches into that private sewer easement. However, there is very minimal ground disturbance within the easement. And Timmy, if we can jump to the page 6, bottom right. So you'll see the staircase, very bottom right. Keep scrolling down. We want the elevation that shows the staircase. There we go.
Sometimes there can be a lag
I see.
with the program, so he might be trying to do it. So you can keep going.
Okay. So there's very minimal ground disturbance within that sewer easement, and also it is a private sewer easement. So the Public Works Department did look at it. However, we do not enforce it because it is a private sewer easement, and the applicant, property owner, are both aware of said easement. And now, Timmy, I'm so sorry, but we're going to scroll to the bottom left of page 6 here. So switching to talking about the open yard modification request, the applicant did look at flipping the stairs to wrap around the building to get out of that sewer easement and to get out of the setback a little bit more. However, that would have created problems with encroaching further into the open yard than is currently proposed. It would have not allowed adequate headroom, so they would have had to have gotten rid of this Juliet balcony that adds some architectural interest and also a lot of light and air into a reasonably small unit as it is. And then the other issue, if we can scroll just a little bit to the right here, is that the house or the ADU exactly meets the solar access ordinance as proposed. So if those staircase, if that stair was to be moved back or forth, the access door wouldn't have adequate headroom because it would be moving within that gable. And so either the roof would have to get taller or, well, that's it. The roof would have to get taller and it would need a solar access modification. So staff is supportive of this open yard modification request. So Timmy, if we can go back to page 1, the site plan. When the garage was originally constructed, there was an open yard modification required, and this was back in 2015. And the area that was approved for the open yard included the area behind the garage where the stairs are proposed. And this area is largely unusable. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense as designated open yard. It's 6 feet behind a garage. So the current proposal is to extend the open yard all the way to the secondary front lot line along Olive Street, continue to wrap around the existing covered deck that can't count because it is covered, although it does provide an additional approximately 280 square feet of usable outdoor space. And staff is also supportive because we have to look at the fact that this is a corner lot. It is subject to 2 front lot line or front setbacks, which prohibit a lot of area being designated, but the areas proposed to be designated make sense. They are currently fenced. They are usable open yard area. They are open to the air. And then there are also areas on the lot that can't be counted, but are useful, such as this lower level deck and also an upper level deck for the main residence. And then to wrap up, the project is exempt from CEQA under categorical exemptions 15183 And staff does propose a condition of approval related to the unlikely discovery of archaeological artifacts, since the project is in an archaeological overlay area. And the urban historian did confirm that the property, although in the demo review study area, is not historic and would not affect any historic resources in the area. So that is the end of my presentation, and I'm available for questions.
Okay, great, thank you. I don't have any questions right now. If the applicant would like to make comments, please state your name first and provide any additional comments.
Yeah, it's Anthony Grumbine with Harrison Design. And as well, Serena McClintock is on as well, so she might jump in. She's the project architect for it. So there she is. So she might jump in. Feel free to jump in as well, Serena, especially if I say something that's off by 2 inches. Yeah, just I think the presentation was kind of thorough and good in terms of covering the main points. A few additional sort of items, or just sort of part of how we came here. So if you look at, I just want to make this clear in terms of the overhang, and I think the elevations show it on page 6 of the PDF. Detail 11, if you zoom in at the bottom there, just so it's very clear, and we discuss kind of how we got here. So all of, okay, so the very bottom, detail 11 is the elevation that shows it.
So again, just Timmy's experiencing a little bit of a lag, so we will get you there. Sorry about that.
No worries, no worries. Okay, perfect. Oh, there we go. Okay, so just to be very clear, part of our this whole design has been to be as minimally, to just go to the boundaries in every way and sort of hold back as much as possible. So we designed, as pointed out, it sort of right to the solar angle that is required, and also even though there's just a garage next door that was just built, and obviously it's blocking the sun from hitting the garage, but even with that, we try to keep it very, very low and minimal in terms of what we're adding to the overall plate and the effect on the neighbor, what would it be, northeasternly neighbor. So that just sort of in the design move, and then popping the dormers out towards the residence, our client's main residence, was our way of getting light and air and all those things into it. So it was looked at extensively to try to get it to work in the most sensitive way possible. And I guess one of the only other points was going to be that when it comes to, we do have a civil engineer on board. We are aware of the easement, and we also have another permit for the front modification that's already going into the building department currently. And so we're very aware of the drainage issues. We're very aware of the easement. And my guess is once it comes time for structural, to put the posts in for the stair and for the land, or where the stair comes down, we're going to be wanting to keep the structure out of the easement anyways, just for ease and just to make sure that we're clear of everything and not wanting any issues with that. So we're going to be very sensitive in terms of structural as well. And even though we're showing in architectural that it goes 2 inches over, my guess is it's going to be, we're going to be tucking that structure itself that's supporting it and the footings back. So anyway, so that was just wanted to add that additional little piece of information. And then I think everything else was covered pretty well. So I'm up for any additional questions or whatever else.
I'd like to add a little bit of information as well. Timmy, would you please go to the bottom right-hand elevation? So what you'll see when we get to look at this here, we understand as applicants that any project, especially one that's being proposed within side yard setbacks, needs to be very sensitive of the neighbors. And so we encourage the client to connect with the neighbors and talk about their privacy and be sensitive to that, as well as the design itself. And what I think you'll hear in a public comment in regard to the neighbor to the south is that they felt okay with the stair, and I don't want to take any information away from them, but I did want to point out to Suzie that the neighbor recommended that this entrance door instead of showing a kind of a glass window at the door or a little kind of glass opening, that go completely solid so as to further the neighbor's privacy. And we agree that's a great idea. The client is also supportive. So I just wanted to point that out as well.
And that's where the one bubble is. There,
Yes, exactly
where
right.
you
Thank
zoomed
you.
Yeah. Thanks, Serena. That was a good, important point. And then as well, that as mentioned in the initial summary, the landing itself for the door is basically just enough to get up there and go around. There's no space for a chair or anything else. So it's really just a landing for the stair. Okay, is that
great.
it, Serena? Did I miss anything else?
That's it.
All right.
Okay, I do have a couple questions. So in regards to the open yard modification, how is it envisioned that the open yard will be utilized between the primary unit and the ADU?
So actually, if we can go to page, let's see, is that one? I guess it's one, zooming into the plot plan 5 is the best. So yeah, if you can zoom in, you might already be zooming in, but just the lag. Okay. There we go. Okay, perfect. Yeah, and actually that brings up one more issue that I did want to touch on a little bit more on the open yard. As you can see where the stair is, the little tiny little speckles, that was and that rectangle that extends all the way to the northeasternly neighbor. That was the previous one, as you know, the previous open yard. It had to have a modification to do this open yard to begin with. And we were very happy with being able to being able to propose the open yard move towards the front where it actually is open and there is a fence and it's all open, usable space. It's a fenced in space that is much more actually open and usable. I think that for the accessory dwelling unit, depending on who's there, if it's a relative that's staying there, like a parent, then it might be a more both parties using space. So that's it is all open and shared in the sense that you will be walking through that space. So whether that space is being used for the accessory dwelling unit or for the main residence, there isn't a delineation. So the stair goes right into the main yard. And so obviously whoever is going to be staying there is going to be sort of part of the family in that sense. And then I did want to actually point out one other thing that I forgot to mention. In terms of the front yard, this is a weird lot because it has the corner condition, corner lot, but it also has the entrance in a weird way on Olive, even though the address is Valerio, which is confusing for everyone. So we're in our last permit, we did the covered porch at the top. You can see the top of the residence there, and we reworked the entry so that it goes down to the corner, and it's very clear that this is the way you come in to the front door because the address would imply that you would be coming in off of Valerio, and everyone gets confused and packages get delivered to the wrong place and all kinds of stuff. So we're hoping that takes care of the majority of that issue. As part of that, we also, you could see it kind of very lightly here where the 15-foot front yard setback sign is, or the dimension string is. Right there, you see the light gray line that goes along parallel to the path. That is also enclosing that, and it's a low fence, but it's an enclosure as well for the front yard, so that it's actually a very usable front yard, almost like a backyard as well. So there's actually a whole heck of a lot of open yard in the property on really all sides, but it's just in sort of a funny shape, or in the technical front yard setback, even though there's a hedge that goes all the way along Valerio, and which is part of the confusion for where the entrance is. But it encloses that whole front yard in a very sort of open and enclosed way for the property. So there's that. And I think that's the kind of the general idea for what the owner is intending on how they're intending on using it. Does that answer the question, or is it?
Sorta. That's not really a plan. You don't have a plan yet of how it's going to be divided between the two units. It just depends on the occupant, is what it sounds
Yeah.
like. Okay, now what about the deck? There's the raised deck on the south side of the residence, and I think just a portion of it's covered.
Yeah.
Can you kind of explain that? It's raised above, how high above grade is it? And can you kind of discuss that?
It was either 1 or 2 steps up from the open yard area with the stairs landing, where the hatch is. I think it's just 1, but maybe it's 2. So it's 2 steps up, and we actually, in the permit that we have still going into the building department, it's through planning, it's going in the building department, is there's actually a fireplace on that deck. The deck's still open to be seated around, but there's a fireplace on that deck now. And we're replacing the railing, but the railing is still where it is along the south. I'm going to get my Santa Barbara coordination. I mean, technically, well, Santa Barbara, it's west, the west side of Santa Barbara, what we call. So along that area is the deck is going to get a new railing and then a fireplace along there as well. So it's an open space as well, but it's covered, and it's there were some technicalities with using it. I don't know if it was because it was the 2 steps up or what it was, but we looked at using portions of it at one point, and it didn't work as well. So even though it's open, so this is probably one of the most open houses in Santa Barbara without a conforming open yard setback or open yard space.
I can add a little more information too. And just yesterday, we forwarded some images to Stephanie, and I think those went to Suzie as well, demonstrating the what is the proposed open yard space. But you might be able to catch a little bit of the existing lower deck. Essentially that, yes, exactly like where we're standing right now, or perfect, looking this way, you can pause, Timmy. So for where we're standing right now is essentially under part of that covered deck. This has doors on both sides to the open kitchen. So Timmy, would you go to the next image, please? Perfect. You can see here as well, there's essentially a lot of indoor-outdoor space, and those doors on the existing residence lead to the existing kitchen. So on that deck area, on the plot plan that we were looking at, essentially serves as outdoor gathering space or outdoor dining space off of the kitchen.
But you don't have any. You don't have any actual pictures. You don't have any actual pictures of that lower deck area behind.
We don't, because it's not part of the scope of what we were working on. So we didn't happen to take pictures of that. Here you can, yeah, exactly. It's also excluded, but just on the very corner, you can catch a couple of outdoor chairs. So this is that natural outdoor gathering space that already exists, but technically isn't counted in the approved open yard area.
Okay, Stephanie, I have a question for you too. Why wasn't that suggested to be included as part of the approved open yard area? It's used as open yard area. Why it was chosen to go into the front setback versus that area?
There was a desire to be consistent with the last modification that was approved, and we were looking at what is the closest to the definition and of the purpose of open yard. And we were looking for open areas, fenced areas, light and air. And so we avoided the deck. We avoided the covered deck because it was covered, but we avoided the uncovered deck because A, it was connected to the covered deck, and when we reviewed the plans, the front setback area actually seemed more logical at the time.
Okay, great, thank you. My other question was regarding the AC units that is in the front yard of the Valerio Street. This plan indicates it's existing, but they are existing, they're as built, but I don't know that they actually have a building permit yet. When a project was proposed before the show last October, I think it was, that those air conditioner units were required to get a building permit and be screened and everything. What's the status of those?
And pardon my interruption,
those-
Suzie, can I just really briefly interrupt? I didn't know if you wanted to open up public comment or if you still wanted to continue with questions.
No, this is questions, and then after
Okay.
questions, I'll open the public comment, and then I'll have deliberations. So
Thank you.
All right. So, and Serena can again jump in if I'm saying it wrong. But those are part of the permit that we have going in to the building department for the covered porch and the whole entry. So that is part of that. We've gone through planning and I believe that, so we're at building department. So maybe that's you know, a little premature on the permitted. Maybe it's permitted in process or some other language that helps define and we can give the number for it for what
Okay,
the.
I didn't see it on those plans, so it's going to be added to those plans that are in for plan check right now.
Serena, do you know about?
Yeah, exactly right. So the AC units were included under they were installed and then of course needed to be put in after the fact as far as permitting, and they were approved under the planning approval for the covered porch. And exactly right, are in the building department right now. And if it seems like they're not indicated right now that they are proposed installed, that will be part of the plan check approval. Exactly right.
Okay. Okay, and then my last question on the floor plan, what was the purpose of the pony wall? That
Oh, so the pony wall, yeah. So if we can go to, let's see, let's show you that.
that one, you got it, Timmy.
Yeah. So, and if we might be able to see an elevation, but there's two things. One was to get it out of the interior setback and to make sure that we're safely, officially out in terms of our actual habitable space. So we're out of the setback officially. And the other was it's very low, and that because we are only raising the roof, you know, 3.5 feet or so from the garage. That corner, that sliver, is really tight and really not usable unless you pop a dormer in there. And we didn't want to pop a dormer in, so for privacy's sake, of the neighbor. So we just basically moved the pony wall in. I think it goes up to 5 foot and something. And so it's really just to give extra privacy to the neighbor so that we're not using it like we are on the other side. On the other side, we pop dormers on both sides and we get the bathroom and the kitchen out of each of the dormers, and we get to use that space. So it was just really to sort of meet the setbacks and also for neighbors' sake.
Okay, great, thank you. Those are my questions for right now. I'd like to open the public hearing before we see who has their hand raised. I do want to note for the record that I received 2 emails. One was from Liz and Mike Mute. I'm sorry if I butchered your name. They expressed support of the second-story ADU. They're the neighbors that are immediately to the south of this property. And they had the caveat that with the provision that the landing located within the setback is not allowed to be expanded in size in the future, and that windows cannot be added at a later date. And then the second public comment is from Teddy Gasser, and expressing concerns with the proposed stairway and the easement that is on the rear of the property regarding sewer and drainage. So I've read both of those, and with that, I will open the public comment. And Ellen, you want to?
Yes, thank you, Suzie. So again, just to remind you, I see 2 hands raised at the moment. I'm going to first call on Teddy Gasser and then Liz Munch. And okay, so Teddy, I have just unmuted you. What you need to do is, actually, Timmy, can you go back to the other side? You need to unmute yourself using the microphone icon. On this screen, there's the 2 icon. There you go. You should be live. Okay, so whenever you're ready, you have 2 minutes to speak, and Timmy will start the timer when you start. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. I really appreciate your taking my concerns into consideration. And I plead with you to suspend the approval until the drainage easement issues and surface drainage swale to Valerio can be incorporated into this project. I consulted with Dale Weber, and as you know, he's a hydrological engineer with Ashley Vance. And during his site visit and visual assessment, it was his opinion that the 2% swale along the back of the properties, which has historically existed and drains our formerly shared driveway, garage roofs, and everything that rolls down from Shasta Lane towards Valerio. After the construction of 435 East Valerio, the last owner developers agreed to keep and construct a drainage swale in the drainage area. And that is why this easement exists. It is referred to this, it is an addendum to the sewer easement amendment, which you've also referred to, and is a 3-foot section of land, and you should have a copy of that. I see you do. We have had some disagreement, but are trying to work things out with the bays. That can happen in due course, but the easements exist and the project must be designed to meet them. I want to make sure I can never be denied the use of my easements. If you approve this project without considering these issues, then you leave me and the downhill neighbor, Liz and Mike Munch, exposed to flooding and leave us in an impossible situation for all future mega storm flows. Please make these issues a part of the approval process, your final approval process. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. And now I have Liz Munch. I have gone ahead and unmuted you. If you could please use your microphone icon on your GoToWebinar control panel. If you click on it, it'll turn green and then you'll have there you go. You should now be ready to, you have 2 minutes.
Okay, hi, thank you all. Yes, as I can see, you've read our email. We just want assurances from the city that the bays or future owners of the property not be allowed to expand the current proposed staircase landing into a balcony, and that the windows cannot be added at a later date to the doors or windows on the west side. And that's pretty much it. I mean, otherwise, we don't see a problem to the current design.
Okay, great, thank you. So with no one else out there, I will close the public hearing. And now it's, oh, Ellen, did you want to? Okay, so now it's all, I may have some additional questions, but now it's back to me for the deliberation part. So in regards to the requested approvals, the interior setback and the open yard modification, I'm gonna, actually there's the two interior setback modifications and the open yard modification. So in regards to the interior setback modification to allow the construction of the ADU in line with the existing garage, that request or that modification, I feel is an appropriate improvement for both the reasons what was stated in the staff report, and also the fact that I really feel the applicant team has made an effort to reduce the potential impacts to the property owner to the west, in that you're only raising the elevation or the height of that wall by 1.5 feet, and the slope of the roof, is really not that obtrusive to the neighbor, and and there's no openings on that side, and you're keeping the floor plan such that it limits access to that area, which I really appreciate. So in regards to the interior setback, staff's calling it the northern interior setback. That is supportable and consistent with the purpose and intent of the zoning ordinance. In regards to the interior setback modification to allow the staircase within this is the one they're calling western interior setback. So the rear at the bottom of the site plan here where Timmy's zooming in. That one raises some concerns with me in terms of the potential conflict between the two neighbors. I like how the design is respecting the neighbor and trying to reduce any potential privacy impacts, and that it is a second story. It's access to a second story, so it does provide the height to be able to look over into the backyard, and I respect the neighbor's concerns. In regards to expanding the deck, or sorry, the landing to go into a deck, if this was for just an accessory use, not accessory dwelling unit, that would require an interior setback modification. And I think even the fact that it is an ADU, since the state law now says that the setback is 4 feet, and this entrance landing is less than 4-foot setback from the interior property line, it would still need a modification. But I wanted to ask the applicant team if they would be open to a condition on the property if I was inclined to approve that setback modification that would limit the ability to expand that landing into a deck. And then also, I wanted to just question you or discuss with you a condition regarding windows on that elevation, to prohibit windows on that elevation. And that elevation is actually outside of the setback, so that's technically not in my purview. But since you are asking for encroachments into that setback, it'd be another way to reduce the potential impacts between those two properties. And so I would like to give the applicant team an opportunity to respond to that.
Okay, so without having talking to my client first, and I don't know if the buyers are on right now and whether they are on the call. My guess is they'd be fine with it, but I'd always want to check to make sure first, because all along this has been kind of our core design, and they've been good with this design. So I don't think that there would be any, they would have any issue with that, with either one of those.
Pardon my interruption. I do have the owner, I think, is it Peter Bay? Is that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I
Perfect.
have the ability to unmute him if,
Perfect.
Peter,
Yes, please.
I am unmuting you. So hang on. Okay. So I've got a lot of feedback. I don't know if, how you're watching this, but we're picking up a lot. If you want to use your audio, then you'll need to turn the volume down on your television or turn off one of your mics. So I'm going to try it again. Okay. Peter, can you test your audio?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, you might speak a little bit louder. I think you're pretty soft.
Okay.
That's better.
Yeah, we agree with both the things that were just proposed. It was part of our two discussions with Liz and Mike, who are kind of our southwest neighbors, to take the glass out of the doors and to limit that landing area. So we agree with both of those, if that's what you're looking for from the owners also.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, and then regarding the private easement and the drainage, historic drainage is looked at the building permit stage, and in regards to it's a private easement, the city doesn't enforce private easements. However, I have reviewed, and I think it's one of the plans here, there is a survey, topographic survey, and it does show, I think if you go up one more, Timmy, at least that's the order in my, no, there. So you can see that the easements, the private easements are shown on this plan. And I can require that those easements be also shown on the site plan, just so that it's information that the building division will look at while they're doing their plan check. Review. And you've
Okay, sounds
indicated,
good.
yeah, and you indicated, Tony, that, or Anthony, that you are, you may be, your intent or what the design will be is that the footings will be out of that easement, but there might be some overhang. Did I hear you right?
Yeah, that's my guess is how we'll solve that. I think that's, we want to stay away from there anyways. I mean, no one wants to put foundations next to plumbing. So it's, yeah, my guess is we have a civil engineer on board, Mark Braun, and we also have a structural engineer on board, but we're just, we're waiting to make sure that we can do everything before we pull the trigger. Yeah, my guess is we're going to end up with an L-shaped footing that stays away and do a little bit of a cantilever so we stay clear of it. So I'm sure that we can work that into our structural and civil. We're very, very sensitive to that area, that whole drainage issue. We don't, and this is on our client's property, and we definitely don't want them having any issues as well. So it's in everyone's best interest that we have a good civil engineer engaged in looking at the whole site. So, which we do. So yeah, we're definitely fine with being very sensitive to that easement because it works for us as well.
Okay, great, thank you. You can go back to the actual site plan to me. So in regards to the requested interior setback modification for the stairs, I understand the constraints of the site and all the different aspects that you're trying to balance in regards to preserving the most amount of usable open yard area and in regards to the stair location. You can't put the stairs in the front of the accessory dwelling unit, then you can't get to the garage. The only option is on the side. And so, or the side with the open yard or the side with the interior setback. And I really appreciate the fact that the owners is keeping the neighbor's interest in mind and being open to design solutions for his project that encompasses his goals and also protects the neighbors. So I could find that interior setback modification is an appropriate improvement. In regards to the open yard request, I realize this property, it's a constrained lot. It has 2 front yards, it has existing development, so it really limits the areas where you can propose one development to the open yard area. I feel that the area, which I'll call the south, it's a setback there, that's not really usable open area. And I know that part of the intent of an open yard area is not only an area to be able to recreate and to enjoy the outside, but it's also to provide, reduce the development on the site. So I understand why it can be included. My preference would be to utilize the outdoor deck before going into the front setback. I think it is currently used that way, used for outdoor enjoyment. You're proposing the fireplace, like you said, there's seating. So I would, my approval would be to include that deck area, because it is, when you include that along with the 6-foot strip that is open area, open, not hardscaped, it is a wider area. And so I would designate the approved open yard area to include the deck 2. And I understand why staff's clicked on. I understand why staff has originally not included it in terms of it'd be consistent with the previous approvals. Now with Enzo, it does allow areas, outside areas that are less than, was it 36 inches, Stephanie, to be included in the open yard area. I don't know if this one is elevated higher than 36 inches, but
It is in
that's
a
why I
certain
would-
area. You can see there's a lot of stairs along the back of the house. I just
Near
wanted to
Valeria?
clarify, do you mean just the uncovered deck or the covered portion of the deck as well to be designated?
What I would suggest including, that's why I was wishing we had better pictures of it, is where the house, which I call the south side of the house. I'm not sure what the elevation, I don't remember the elevation call it, but where that point comes out, where from the bedroom over to the garage. So just a portion of the covered area, because the other part that's facing the covered area that's facing the garage, that's more like a covered entry. And it's broken up between the paving and not paving. So that's kind of a little awkward, although it's on the same level as that decomposed granite area. I would think, I would draw a line out. I don't know, Timmy, if you can show why don't you guess what I'm talking about? Yeah, right now go to your left. Yeah, so that covers that part of the deck. Does that make sense?
I think I know exactly what you're talking about. So basically, the portion of the covered deck, which is on what you're saying was the south side of the house, those are between those two groups of column or posts. That portion of covered deck, and then extending down towards the southerly neighbor or southwesterly neighbor. And there is, and just to be clear, there are steps on one side. That whole side is elevated, but it basically goes down to a one-step transition over by the ADU. So it's elevated on one side. It has the railing in between. It is both, it's open the whole way. But that makes sense. I think we can definitely indicate that on. And it seems like size-wise, it should pan out to. And you're saying to stay out of the. Try to stay out of the front yard, or just try to stay out of what the last one had. So the previously approved modification for which one do you want us to try to stay out of?
I wish we were in person so I could draw on it.
Yeah, I know. I'm almost going to go into PDF and try to just mark this up real fast. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe just.
What I was.
Maybe Timmy's hand, we can get him to like circle that area. So yeah. So what I'm thinking you're saying is from.
Or can you have me be the presenter, Timmy, or no?
I think we can try it. So hang on just a moment. There might be a little lag time, Suzie. I just want to let you know. And Timmy, weigh in if there's something specific.
Okay, so what it says now. Oh no, you're going to make me show my screen.
No, that's not what we're looking for. I think Timmy might have to control it. Hang on. I'm going to.
Or can he share his screen? Is that the other word you use?
Yeah, I think I messed with it. Timmy, do you want to join us?
So I had given you keyboard and mouse control, Suzie, so you'd be able to move the mouse and show everything.
Oh, hey, there's me. Yeah, that's me moving it. Okay, so what I was thinking, or this area here, to include this area in it.
Yeah, that's what I thought you were saying. Okay.
And then since you just only need, then it would reduce it here. You may still need to go into the open yard or the front setback or first 10 feet. This is, Stephanie, so you consider this the primary front yard and this the secondary, although all the access is off the street? Is it just because the address was here?
Yeah, that was the determination we made. We went round and round about which do we consider primary and secondary.
Yeah.
So
well, when was decided? So that's,
Uh,
so I was just thinking, this might be more than enough, but this is area here is currently, it's used as outdoor area, how it's intended to be used. And so that's why I would want this area to be included as the area that's designated.
So Suzie, when you
So if-
say you may need to go into the front setback, is there a certain number you're trying to hit? You want us to hit the same 1150 that was approved before? Or you're just saying get to as close to 1250 as you can without going into the front setback? What do you mean by you may need to go into the front setback?
Yeah, to get the 1250, but I'm not opposed to you going into the front setback. I just think since I'm approving an open yard area that doesn't meet the code requirements, that I think that area should be included. So by my suggestion of, or by my requirement of that, I'm not saying you can't go into the front yard. I just think it's more appropriate to designate this area that as the front yard. I mean, front yard, open yard.
So, yeah, so it's basically fill up this area, the area you just circled, with as the open yard, and then if there's anything extra that needs to spill into the front yard, spill into the front yard with that. But first, fill up the area that you just circled. Okay,
Great, yes.
that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. So then in regards to the air conditioner units, since there's not a permit issued, it's only in process and that project can be revised, I'm going to add a condition that this be included on this permit. And if it's included on the other permit, then it's taken care of. So I'll add that condition that similar to the condition that was placed on the project in 2019 that you're implementing right now. I'm just going to put that condition on this one. But like I said, if it gets resolved before then the condition's complied with.
Great, thanks.
All right, so okay, so I think those are my comments regarding the open yard with adding that area. So again, like I said, it is a constrained lot and it doesn't meet the minimum lot size either. It's under 6,000 square feet. So it has a number of constraints, including the corner lot, which requires 2 setbacks, the existing development and that, what have you, and the area that is proposed, in addition to the area that is in the front yard of the Valerio Street, that's also a usable area. So it does have usable area. It's not sloped lot, which would make it, not usable. So the open yard modification is supportable also. Staff, as Stephanie had indicated, she was proposing the condition, the archaeological monitoring condition. And you've read and understand that condition, applicant team? Yeah.
Yes.
So,
Sorry.
and the conditions, I can summarize the conditions I'm proposing to add, or that I would like to add, is one is the mechanical equipment, one regarding the AC units, that they be shown, included in the scope of work of this permit. And I can put in there if it's not subject of a previous permit. I'll work on the wording because I want to acknowledge that the scope of work needs to be included with this permit, but I don't want it to sound like you need to re-permit it. You understand what I'm saying? I'll work on the wording on that. But in regards to the open yard, that the improved open yard area shall be revised to include that outdoor area that we discussed, and that the windows on the second story of that detached accessory structure, that no windows be proposed on the south elevation, I think it is, the south elevation, and that the the landing not be increased and that the door be a solid door to protect the privacy of the neighbors. And then the other condition is that the easement, the private easement, be also shown on the site plan submitted for the building permit, so that it's clear that there is a private easement in that area. So I think those are so there'd be 5 conditions on there. So like I said, I appreciate the work that went into this project in terms of respecting the neighbors in the fact that you are requesting 2 interior setback modifications, but you incorporated design elements to reduce potential conflicts between the neighbors, and I appreciate that and recognize that. So with that, I'll make the findings outlined in the staff report and approve your project subject to the conditions of approval as we discussed this morning. My action is appealable to the Planning Commission within 10 calendar days. And Planning Commission also has oversight authority of all my actions. And if they felt this warranted discussion before them, they could call it up during that same 10-day appeal period. And if either of those would occur, Ms. Swanson will contact you. Okay?
Sorry, muted. Thank you. Yes. That's what happens
means
when you
answer.
self-mute as well. So
Okay, great. So you have a project. And with
All
that,
right,
since
thank
that
you
was the
very much.
last, sure. Since that's the last item or only item on the agenda, I'll adjourn the meeting. Thanks.
Have a great day.